Jamie, my friend,
Hello.
how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Like we were chatting about before we hit the record button, everything's okay considering everything that's going on in the world at the moment. So can't complain. Everyone has their own stuff going on with keeping sane and being locked away in their houses and stuff. And I know everyone's struggling in ways, but we can't complain. We're all healthy, so it's all good.
Good. That's what's important. Healthy family.
It literally is.
So, as I mentioned, I'm just going to I'll do a little intro, which is great for me because I'm super proud of my friends. So
I'm worried about what this intro is going to
be. Don't worry, it's all stuff that you're fully aware of, I'm sure.
I don't want to be bigged up or anything. Come on, be brutally honest.
Yeah. So I've got I've got some of the people you work with and what you do. So first off, of course, you're a director, editor, and content creator.
Yeah, I think probably content creator just encompasses all of that nowadays, doesn't it?
I like that.
And I'm all right. I'm all right with that. Some people find the content creator term like a bit YouTuber. I think some people get a bit like, "Oh God, I'm not a content creator," but no, I make stuff for the online world. So
yeah, I
literally create content. I mean, it couldn't be more to the point of what I do.
Yeah, wicked. So just for everybody that's listening, I'm gonna go through them all quickly. I'm gonna go through all of them quickly that I found on your website.
Okay.
Because I think they're all worth mentioning, as to who you've worked alongside and through various mediums and things like that, just so everyone knows what we're dealing with here. So, list of the names to begin with: Ed Sheeran, of course, Michael Bublé, Coldplay, Anne-Marie, Muse, Biffy Clyro, Lily Allen, Liam Gallagher, Slipknot, The Cause, amazing, Bruno Mars, Stormzy, Kylie Minogue, Prince, Paul Weller, Lewis Capaldi, Gabriella Aplin, Ray Morris, One OK Rock, personal favorites, Linkin Park, and Leanne LaHavas.
It's a weird collection of names. It's something that I still get a bit weirded out when you say it out loud that I've done stuff like that. It's still a bit odd to me, to be honest.
Massively impressive, though. And then, just worth mentioning as well, obviously you've worked with, I'll get onto this later, but obviously worked with companies in various capacities. But yeah, Warner Records, Island Records, Sony Records, Atlantic, Parlophone, Abbey Road Studios, Amazon. They're all, I think we can all agree, pretty big companies.
Yeah, they're not bad. They've made some names for themselves.
Yeah, they're probably,
they've done some business.
Done a bit of business. So yeah, we're you're the real deal, my man. It's I'm certainly proud to be able to know people like you, and it's good. It makes the industry seem a little more friendly,
Thanks, man.
Yeah. So first question, probably the most obvious. Tell me how you got into it. Tell me how you got into the industry. It's broad, I know, but in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, see, I tell this story, and I think you can take it in a couple of ways, and it's something that straight away is like pretty important to me to clarify with a lot of people. So I was really fortunate. Like, we get it out of the way straight away. Obviously, everyone knows that the music industry, there's a lot of it's who you know, and it's getting an in and stuff, and there is no getting away from that. And it's the same for the majority of all industries, really. But I don't think that you should ever take someone saying that as that's the only reason they are where they are. But I'll explain first. So I was at university, and my sister-in-law was working in HR at EMI Records, and I was looking for some work experience, I think. Or she was basically, my brother's like very close to me, and he was kind of like my second dad because they're a lot older than me, my brothers. So they've both been like dads. So they're very much like, you should be doing this, not like brother lad stuff, more like, why have you not tidied your room? So he was pushing me to get out there and come to London, and she got me a role for, I think it was a week originally at EMI Records, but I was at university studying music technology, so I wasn't doing anything to do with what I do now. And sort of the HR department said, well, look, we haven't really got anything like what you're doing. They were working with Abbey Road Studios, but they obviously don't just have a studio to chuck me in and do work in. So like, so we'll put you in the AV team, which is what was the sort of like, the AV team at EMI was one of the first label content hubs, I'd say. Now there's a lot of in-house creative teams at labels, but EMI Creative, as it became, and the AV team it was then, was one of the first ones. And I was really lucky. I got a week at EMI, moved down to London. My brother was living there, and I got this week where I basically was chucked in at the deep end. And I was always quite like a shy and anxious kid. And do you know what? I still am a little bit, but I think when you get older, you sort of learn to push yourself through it, or some people learn to push themselves through it. And so when I went in, my boss for the week, a guy called Jay, who was massively important role model to me, even though I only worked for him for a few months. He sort of said, here's a camera. Obviously, remember, I've come from university doing music tech, so I've never filmed anything in my life other than playing with my dad's like camcorder as a kid. He's like, here's a camera. I need you to go to Brixton. I need you to film some cutaways for a TV show that we've been working on. And it was back where 4 Music did like the late night 11 o'clock 4 Music things on Channel 4. So I had to just go down to Brixton and film cutaways. And it was massively at the deep end because the camera's like 10 grand camera. I don't really know London. The pressure's on me. And I'm the sort of person that doesn't want to do a bad job. Obviously, I want to nail it. Anyway, that week I just tried to make as much of an impression as possible by being chucked in at the deep end and just accepting everything that came my way. Ended up doing some sound on some Robbie Williams interviews, which was amazing because I love Robbie. Like, I love rock and metal, but I love Robbie. So that was really cool. And I guess during that week, I just kind of made a bit of a, not name for myself, but I just didn't sit down quietly in the background, and I tried to make myself a little bit noticed without being annoying at the same time. You kind of want to leave an impression on people. Mm-hmm. I went back to uni, did my last year, and when the year was up, I immediately got an email to my old boss, Jay, and said, look, I finished uni. I want to come back and do more work experience with you if you'd have me. I can stay with my brother so I can do unpaid work. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that everyone should be doing unpaid work, because nowadays there's a lot more opportunity for people to get internships and things where they are paid and are able to look after themselves. But at the time, I was fortunate that I had my brother and he paid for me to eat and sleep there and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I did like 2 months of unpaid work at the start of my career, just hanging around at EMI. I'd learned how to edit on the job during that week and gone back to university with kind of wow, this is maybe what I need to be doing. Like, I sort of felt like I'd finally fallen into something that I actually could do or enjoyed doing, because I was sort of at uni just going, well, I'll go to uni for 3 years and play Xbox and have some drinks and get away from life for a bit. It wasn't like I went to uni. I kind of just wanted to be in a band. I didn't want to be a music producer, but you can't just go to uni and be in a band. You have to go to uni and start learning about, music production. And it wasn't ever really my thing, and I wasn't engaged with it. But as soon as I fell into the video world, immediately editing, I was like, right, I can take what I know about Logic, and you can actually transfer those skills quite easily. Yeah. You have to realize it's a different format, it's different ways of working. But the idea of creating a timeline and building a project and moving things here and there and affecting those parts is the same in video as it is in audio, just in slightly different ways. So I just really wanted to do something. That's why I was like, yeah, I'll do 2 months of unpaid work. Basically, long story short, it all fell into place. My boss, who was a mentor to me at the time, who treated me like hard, but also very friendly and very like kindly. So he was hard on me in making me do this stuff, but also a really nice guy. And I think that was the way that engaged me. I needed to be pushed in at the deep end. I needed to be pushed. I needed to be a little uncomfortable so that I made sure the results were always a higher level, rather than when you're comfortable and you sometimes just do something and it's not everything it could have been. He left and went on sabbatical, basically, and they said, look, he's going to be gone. Everyone's going to be moving up a step. Do you want to come in on a 6-month temporary contract at like the bottom? So I was the coordinator of the team, it was called then. And that was 10 years ago last week.
Wow.
Yeah, on my like memories thing, it came up that I just started working at EMI. Yeah. And that was 10 years ago. So yeah, 10 years ago, that was when I got my first contract in the industry. And that's how it all began.
Fantastic.
Sorry, it's very long-winded, but...
No, not at all. No, that's we want to hear the origins. That's important.
Yeah, it's cool how it's all worked out, and it's mad to think it's been 10 years, and bloody hell, 10 years before that I was 10, 11. So you think it's a long time. You think of the what you do between 11 and 21, and now what I've done between 21 and 31. It's pretty mad, to be honest.
It's a chunk of your life.
Yeah, for sure.
And you've certainly accomplished a lot in that time. I imagine it's gone very quickly, and not only professionally, but with the family.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, life goes really quickly, and then you think back and you go, wow, 10 years is a long time.
Yeah.
Like every day you're like, oh, it's a new week. But then you think back and you go, Jesus Christ, if you imagine reliving from 11 to 21 or 21 to 31, there's a bloody lot of stuff that goes on there, isn't there?
Isn't it just?
So yeah, it's pretty weird, but yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun journey so far.
Yeah, here's to the next 10.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there.
I've got some questions for you. I'm sure everyone would like to hear answered. So, as much as I'd love to chat about them all, every single one of them, for the sake of time, how did you become involved with Mr. Ed Sheeran? He's at the top of your list.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be at the top of the list, really, hasn't he?
Absolutely.
But for two reasons. I guess that you put him at the top of the list because he is probably one of the biggest global music stars in the world.
I think it's safe to say, yeah.
You'd probably say he's up there, one or two. I would probably say he's probably the biggest pop star in the world, or was during the Divide campaign.
Sure, I'd be inclined
also it's just an extremely good time in my life working with a really nice guy and a really nice team around him. I don't think you ever can talk about an artist without talking about the management and the label that you work with on it and stuff, and sort of everything with Ed all falls into a really great category. So I got involved with Ed. I mean, I've been really, there's no getting away from the fact I've been really lucky with a lot of things, but obviously luck is based on there's a really great quote that I really like, which is like, I think it was Jamie Lenman who was in that band Reuben. He said like, I'm really fortunate and lucky to be in the position that I'm in, but you can work really, really hard and not get a lucky break and not make it, or you can get that lucky break but not put your all into it and it becomes a 5 minutes thing. So it's a mixture of luck and hard work is what I think all of life is, really.
Definitely.
So I was lucky to get the opportunity of Ed, and I was given it by my boss through a lot of the time at Warner, a guy called Stefan Dimitriou, who's now the head of, I believe he's the head of Globe Productions at Universal Music, is his title now. So he's one of the heads at Universal now. And he's been great to me and given me some amazing opportunities. And he asked me and Luke, who's a guy who I used to work with for quite a few years at Warner. We were kind of a bit of a creative duo at Warner as in-house guys. He gave us the opportunity to go down and just film Ed's album playback for basically press. So before Divide was out, everyone gets to hear it and they get a snippet of what's coming up on the album. So people from the music channels will be there and the radios and everything. And it's kind of a way to engage with, I guess, the industry before things are fed out into the world.
Yeah.
So that was great. And nothing really came from that. I sort of met Ed briefly and did a quick bit to camera, and that was that. And I don't really know where it came from, but then I sort of got asked to start covering like Ed's like promo stuff in the UK. And I think again it was Stefan Stewart, who's Ed's manager, is a lovely guy, and he's really good friends with Stefan. And he sort of said, "Is there someone?" And he said, "Oh yeah, well Jamie filmed this, and he would be really good to do it." So out of nowhere, I was then suddenly getting up at 4 a.m. and going to like Radio 1, Radio 2, Capital with Ed. Literally me, Ed, Mark, his tour manager, Kev, who's a security guard. And I would just film it, and it was like fly on the wall, just capturing everything, because obviously Divide, and Ed is such a massive artist, and Divide became such a massive album. They wanted to make sure that things that were happening around that time were captured. So like the day that Castle on the Hill and Shape of You came out, which was the first two singles off that album, I was with Ed. We were at the first radio plays, and it kind of just has gone on from there. So I got to do UK promo stuff, which led to a round the world promo trip with Ed, which is an amazing experience, like amazing. We did in 2.5 weeks. We literally flew around the globe, like in the most literal sense.
Yeah.
I was in London, and then we went over to Japan and did Tokyo for, I think it was maybe 5 days we were in Tokyo. Then we went to Australia and did, maybe it was like 3 days in Melbourne and 3 days in Sydney, and the surrounding areas. And then we went over to America, flew to New York, did a few days in New York, and then we flew back over to LA and did some days in LA, and then we came back. And then when we got back, we carried on doing England again. So we were doing one show and some more radio stuff. And it's just been an amazing experience. Obviously from that, I've got to do, I've got to do the Wembley Stadium show, which is probably like the absolute highlight of my career. It will never go any higher because of everything it means to me, I guess, and what I put on it. And and it sounds stupid, but being a football fan and being a young kid who loved football, Wembley Stadium is like, it's the place. And also the gigs that go on there are obviously so massive and of such a scale that to get access behind the scenes to a venue like that and be running a team who are capturing a show where 90,000 people are at is just like insane to me still. I still can't believe that we managed to do it. And I got to do an advert for his merch range, which basically the merch range was shown on all of the screens around Wembley Stadium. So the little film that I'd made, a little merchandise fashion film, was being showed in the stadium and in stadiums all around the world. Inside the tour booklet for the tour were photos that I'd taken of Ed, and I led a 15 camera capture of the show itself for when Andrea Bocelli came on stage and they sang Perfect together for the first time ever.
Yeah.
So it's been, working with Ed has been brilliant. And as everyone knows, and with people everywhere, some people put up a persona of who they are, and when you get to know them, they're someone different. That's what happens in life with everyone, not just famous people. But Ed is exactly the person who he comes across as, a lovely, down-to-earth guy who is just a really nice person to work with. He works really, really hard. I don't think I've ever worked with anyone in the music industry that works harder than Ed Sheeran. Actually, it sounds a bit mental to say, because you think about rock bands like really like killing themselves doing these really small tours, and that's really hard. But Ed did that, got massive, and then even when he was doing Divide, which is I think is it the biggest album of the last 10 years, or Adele was, and he was second or something crazy. He was doing regional radios. Most stars will do a Radio 1 and a Capital. That hits most of the UK in listenership, and that's it. But Ed would do literally like regional radios for like Radio Suffolk and Radio Norfolk, and he would do all of these things because he really wants to make sure that he's getting his music out to as many people as possible, and he cares about what he's doing.
Yeah.
So without sounding like the Ed Sheeran fan club, it just makes for a much more enjoyable experience working with someone who really cares about what they're doing and is really lovely. So
absolutely, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's been a really cool time. We haven't worked together for a while. I think the last thing we did was a weird collision of worlds for me, in that I've been working with 1OK Rock, the Japanese band, who I met when I was with Ed in Japan, and then hadn't worked with Ed for a bit, and now I started working with 1OK Rock, and then 1OK Rock were in the studio, and Ed came to the studio, and they've done some stuff together.
I'm so happy that that's happened and has become a thing.
I know, but it's so weird that I was at the studio with 1OK Rock, and Ed turned up to the studio, and he just opened the door and was like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm doing stuff with them." And he was like, "They signed to Warner." And I was like, "Oh, I'm freelance now." And then we caught up about stuff. And the lovely thing about Ed is he said, "How's Hannah, my wife?" He remembered Hannah's name. It sounds like a tiny thing, but when someone is so massive and they have to deal with so many people every day for years and years and years, you can't imagine that they remember everyone. But he was like, "How's Hannah?" And then he said, "Are you driving back up to Lowestoft tonight?" Which is where her parents live. The studio was in Suffolk, so it was close. And just those small things are like, they mean a lot when your career is built around working with people where you're kind of like, "Hey, nice to meet you. Here's the job. Blah, 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 blah. Done. See ya." You know what I mean? And it's nice to be with someone that's more of like, you've got more of a relationship with. It's just a nice difference to a lot of the other stuff that I end up doing, to be honest.
Absolutely. I think those are the inspirational people to me, like the truly inspirational people to me, the people that not only put everything into their brand and their, you know, or just focus on what they're being told to focus on by their record label or whoever it is, but they actually, you know, stay true to actually being an overall inspiration to across lots of different kind of boards, if you like. So
yeah, I think being someone like that inspires other musicians as well. Like Taka from 1 OK Rock said Ed is an inspirational person to him because he feels that he is the way that most other artists should be and you should look up to. And obviously someone like Ed at that level doesn't need to be doing half of the things that he's doing, but he still keeps up with the sales numbers, the YouTube numbers, and the numbers, you know, like as boring as that sounds, but keeping up with like engagement and what's going on, but then still writing his songs as if it's not like a manufactured thing. He still writes everything himself and works with people he wants to work. It's just really, honestly, it's really great. And I don't think there's many people out there. I've worked with a few people like Ed, but not a lot. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not a very common thing. And it's really nice to have that refreshing normality and hard work and dedication all mixed into like somehow the world's biggest pop star. It's a really interesting and cool mix to work with. So
absolutely,
without sounding like the Ed Sheeran fan club, it is a massively important part of my career to me.
Of course,
for sure.
And so it should be. Yeah, he sounds like a cracking character, and from a business perspective as well. You know, I mean, he approaches business like that is to me, you know, there are plenty of other people from different sectors, you know, not the music industry, like, you know, angel investors, tech sectors, people that do podcasts, you know, Tim Ferriss, and these people, like they've got this work ethic that that Ed seems to apply as well, you know, with generally everything.
Yeah.
He's not just the face of his music, you know, he's right behind everything.
Yeah, it definitely appeals to me because I'm someone that believes in hard work, and I kind of like, I'm a bit of a person that puts myself through the pain a bit when I don't need to sometimes, but that's kind of the way I am. So I do like working with similar people who are based on hard work and dedication. And I'm not saying Ed hasn't got the talent, but he's coupled the talent that he has, which is absolutely massive. And do you know what? Experiencing him in the studio, 1 OK Rock, is the first time I've ever seen him write music. And it's actually genuinely unbelievable. I think someone needs to have a look at what happened when someone made Ed Sheeran, because it is pretty weird that he can write a song in like no time at all, yet is somehow still a super normal dude. And everything is wrong there. Everything is right, but everything is wrong. There's got to be something, but I haven't found it yet.
Yeah.
So
fantastic. I hope you get to work together soon again.
Yeah, it'd be cool. But the other thing is, working with Ed has been great because from a selfish point of view, he's Ed Sheeran, and I've got to do huge things for the world's probably biggest artist. So it's put me in a really good position personally, and his team are great. And I just worked with a singer-songwriter called Dylan, who is signed to Ed's management company. So Stuart, who's Ed's manager, he's got a management company. And she is signed to his management company. And I worked with her because Gabby and Stuart, who are part of that management company, obviously I have a great relationship with, and they trust me, and they know that I can create something for them that they need. So that was really cool. And it's great to have doors open for you because of the work that you've done.
That's right. Yeah. There's always the knock-on effect.
Yeah. So it's been great. It's been really good.
Awesome. So what other major artists have you connected with on a more personal level? Are there any? Obviously, you've mentioned that Ed Sheeran was quite you've singled him out somewhat. But have there been any that you've actually they've been more than just a client to you, and you've actually integrated on a personal level?
I'd probably say no, but only because I think. The only reason is because of what I did with Ed in terms of traveling together for 3 weeks. And we literally traveled together. You know what I mean? Like close proximity. That's how you get close to those people. And if you get on with them, that's how you build up a friendship. The other people that I've felt the same relationship to as Ed have probably been some more of the smaller acts who I've had the chance to either tour with or build up more of a relationship, because obviously when you get to a certain level, you are put behind a bit of a safety blanket because of who you are as an artist, and because of, you know, the potential issues that you could run into if you're too open with someone else. I think the other big artist who I've really got on well with is Biffy Clyro. They're probably the other artists who I've worked with that I felt like a real fun, natural connection to. And again, do you know what? They're really, really, really nice guys.
Yeah.
And Simon and all of the guys, but Simon in particular, who's this lead singer, he remembers my name and asks how I am, and, you know, congratulated me on having my daughter, and all the nice things that, again, it sounds stupid to say out loud, like, oh, someone remembered my name. But when you are turning around work all the time and working with loads of people, it is important. They're probably the band who I've had the ability to connect with. Yeah. But I think that's less due to the amount of time that we spent together working wise, and more just that they're a slightly different breed of artists, in that they're obviously, or were, but are a rock band who have obviously moved more into the mainstream. But I think they've experienced, much like Ed did actually, the 3 albums, I think it was, before they started to get big, and the hard graft of touring in vans and stuff like that. I think that side of things really makes you realise when you get to that higher level that you're more open to people and you're more happy. I don't know. I think you've kind of been through the shit, so you probably feel a bit more like, oh, this is great and it's cool. Whereas people who get that instant fame, it's probably harder for them to, I don't know, open up in a way or something. I've just found always that, like, the rock bands who have had to experience the shitty scenes and the shitty pub tours and things like that, who I've worked with a lot of times, are always like the nicest people. And Biffy is that great crossover of mainstream and having had to have gone through that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But other than Biffy, I mean, the bands I've connected best with, obviously I worked with you when you guys, When Our Time Comes, were doing your first album, and that was amazing because we got to work closely together, and I really enjoyed the sort of DIY aspect of getting stuck in on that, because I was early in my career as well, so I still wasn't at the point I am now. And in particular, a band called Rise to Remain, who I keep looking over here because I've got like a signed poster from them that I found out while I'm sorting this office out because it's unfinished. But they really opened a bunch of doors for me because we all got on really well as friends, but at the same time, there was a lot of relationships that came out of that project as well, and that's a really important one to me. So probably you guys and the things that came out from Rise to Remain basically have been really close to me.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Obviously, it's hard to get super close to some of the other artists because of their ridiculously busy schedule, and you're there at the end of the day, you're there to create a piece of content, or you're there to do a job, and you're not there to make you best friends and stuff. And that is ultimately what some people need to remember. But it's always nice when you do get that personal connection as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure plenty of the people you work with have wanted to, you know, to go for a beer afterwards or whatever, but scheduling wise, just not manageable.
It's work at the end of the day. A lot of people forget that. I mean, it's an amazing job that I do and we do as, you know, musicians and creators and everything like that. I'm so thankful that I get to do what I do. But at the end of the day, some of these artists are doing huge amounts of promo and calls, and they're involved on a million emails and data, and life is just insane for these people when they're trying to get their careers up and running. The gain that they're getting is massive in terms of their exposure and their money, but you've got to think of the human side of things, and that people are like run down and tired, and they haven't got time to engage with every single person they meet. And I think people need to have a more realistic expectation of musicians and celebrities in general, of like the fact that they are human beings, so you can't expect everyone to be your best friend.
That's right. That's absolutely right. I mean, that kind of ties. You've already kind of answered the question that I was really interested in asking, and that was regarding the touring and the traveling. How would you pitch it? How would you pitch touring against desk work? There you go.
That's quite an interesting one, actually, because I think my opinion of this changes really regularly. what I will say is I've probably not done as many tours as a lot of the other creatives who I work with, who are photographers and videographers who mainly work in the live music industry, who are touring all year round. I've been lucky enough in that I've had the experience of touring quite a few times, but either it's been with like friends bands, so I haven't really felt like it's work, or it's been with One OK Rock, but that's kind of it. I've not done loads and loads of tours, I'll say that straight away. A lot of my work is based on one-off shows usually. But it's really difficult because when I'm on tour, so like when I'm on tour with One OK Rock, you get into the pattern and you get into the routine of it and you really enjoy it, right? But before I go away, no part of me wants to go away. But that's changed over the years, and I think I'm changing as a person now. So I guess in answer to your summed up question, the benefits of obviously touring is, the benefit of touring is that you build up a human relationship with people, and if you enjoy what you're doing, you get to do it every night. And also, if you're with the right band, you get to have so much creative freedom. So with One OK Rock, I can literally do whatever I want, anything. With other bands, you would have to create an edit, send it to management, they would then approve it, and then the artist would get it and then post it, right? With One OK Rock, I go, I'm going to take mainly photos tonight, and then I'll film some bits and da-da-da, and then I create my own 60-second highlights thing. And then I just go, hey, Taka, do you like this one from tonight? And they always really love what I do. They have no feedback. They just go, can you airdrop it to me? And then they post it on their socials. And I'm like, this is amazing, because I've literally filmed the show in exactly the way I would want to. And I've cut it in the only way that I would want to. And I haven't had any revisions. It's really freeing to work with someone like that.
Yeah.
And touring can be freeing because obviously you've got a lot of your own time to practice things, and on tour obviously it's the same show 10, 20, 30 nights in a row, so you end up trying different things at different points in the set and things like that.
Right.
Obviously the massive downside to touring is the time away from home.
Yep.
For me, that's the biggest thing. The last tour I went on, my wife was pregnant, so it was really worrying for me to be away during a time, because we don't live near family either, so during that time. And now I've got a daughter, so kind of no part of me wants to be away for a long amount of time because she's growing up constantly. It's lonely when you're on tour sometimes because you're chucked on a bus. And so just as an example, my daily routine with One OK Rock was I was probably up at, I was up between like 10 and 11 in the morning. Sounds late, but wait until you get to the end of the night because it's a rolling day. And I would start working probably straight away, in that I walk to the venue and I film the exteriors. And when I go in, they're setting up the stage. So I start filming the setup. I'm always only making like highlights stuff. So I grab bits of things rather than having to be rolling all the time. I much prefer creating highlights content rather than documentary content, because I like to pick and choose my moments rather than I need to have an idea of what I'm going to create, rather than just filming everything and then spending a long time to create a story. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
So I would go in, film the setup, film the sound check, then you have a few hours, film a bit of backstage, but you're not going to film it all because the band are just chilling out. Often they're on their iPads or phones or asleep, or it's not the most engaging content. Some fans think that it's crazy backstage. It's not. It's basically getting your sleep in and maybe having some calls from people at home until about an hour before you go on stage. Then you do your warm-ups and go on stage. Yep. And it's very similar with filming. A little bug, sorry. It's very different, very similar with filming in that I capture bits backstage. I saw you when I was on the One OK Rock tour when we were over in Budapest, and I had time to meet up with you because I'd captured the band backstage hanging out, and they did the same thing for the next 3 hours. So I didn't need to be in there all the time. Yes, there's the potential that you're going to miss something big, but we all know more often than not, touring can be monotonous and very similar every day.
It was a calculated break, I think.
It's knowing when you can take the break, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then I'll just film the show, film the whole show, film them coming straight off stage. As soon as that's done, so shows usually finish at what, 10, let's say? 10:30?
Yeah, around there.
Let's say it's 10:30. I immediately film them come off stage, and then they need their time to cool down, and I hate being in people's faces.
Mhm.
I'm a natural person. I don't like to force stuff on camera. So I do give people their space. So I'll usually just go and edit my photos I've taken that night straight away. That's done by 11:30, 12, because I've usually got a load of presets and I know what I'm doing with what ones I know because I've remembered taking them.
Mhm.
I'll edit until 3, 4 in the morning to turn around a 60-second highlight piece of that night for the band to post the next day, ready for the next show. And then I'll probably have an hour, half an hour of maybe having a drink or just chilling out. And then it's 5 o'clock in the morning and you're going to bed. And then the 10 a.m. wake up doesn't sound so late anymore. And that's the problem with touring, is that you get into that cycle and it can be lonely because you've got those amount of hours of doing nothing and you're doing the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
I guess to answer your question, personally, I prefer staying at home and doing a desk role nowadays.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
that changed constantly over the years.
Of course.
I started out editing, so it's always been my thing.
Yeah.
I guess that was the thing I learned to do first. Although I was shooting at the same time, I definitely felt like I was an editor who was then trying to learn how to film correctly.
Yeah.
And I always filmed with edits in mind. That's how I know I'm an editor at heart. So I think if the world made me choose one thing, which it seems to have done recently, then I would probably say editing is fine by me, because I still enjoy being creative. I don't mind what I'm working on massively, because it's still fun to be putting stuff together, even if it's just a 15-second ad, cutting up a bit of a video and putting some text on. I still enjoy doing it. So I would probably, personally, I would pick the desk role nowadays over the touring life.
Yeah.
But as with everything in life, you've kind of got to experience it all to then know what exactly is your thing, I guess.
Yeah, and having the opportunity to do both, to have done both, is it's I think it's probably a bucket list thing for anybody that works in this kind of industry. Yeah,
and you know what? I know a lot of people that do it and go mental when they get home because they're just sat around and they don't like it. A lot of the guys that I know who do tour stuff don't really know how to, engage themselves, I guess, when they're at home, because you're so used to that tour mentality. And if you are friends with the people who you're touring with, it's a really nice, it's a really nice environment. I can understand why some people like doing that rather than being at home. I think I'm just a bit of a homebody. And I'm in a different position to some of the other people who are in my career situation, I guess. Absolutely. In terms of my life situation with, luckily I own my house and I have a family. And so it kind of puts me in a different position to some of my friends who live in London and rent houses. And so maybe they don't have a partner or are just starting out. It's just different life points that mean different choices for what you want to do, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Summed up perfectly, I think.
Sorry, waffling on as usual.
Not at all. Well, no, I mean, obviously having experienced touring quite a lot as well, it's completely relatable.
Yeah, you get it. Like, you know what it's like. Yeah, it's great to, as a musician, it's great to play those sets and you miss probably performing and you miss doing that. But at the same time, you don't miss the traveling and you don't miss the turning up to different towns and cities and not really seeing anything about them. The glamorous life of touring isn't that, I flew to here and there, because you don't get a chance. Like when I did the One OK Rock tour, I'd fall asleep on the bus and I'd wake up at the next venue. And in that time, I'd gone from Hungary to Italy.
Yeah.
I didn't get to experience Hungary or Italy. Because as soon as you get to those locations, you're inside the venue. You see the inside of your tour bus and the inside of your venue, and that's it. You're really lucky if you get days off on a tour where you can go and do something. But also, if you get a day off on tour, personally, I want to sit around and do nothing. Maybe go for a swim if I'm lucky enough to be in a hotel, or just hang out and play games and maybe call home.
Yeah.
You don't experience the world as much as some people think you do. I'm not saying it's not an amazing thing to do, because the same thing in life. There's so many things in life that are so much worse than touring the world with musicians.
Sure.
But I think it's just putting everything into context of what the reality of it is.
Yeah, you want to maintain a bit of normality, and you want to maintain like a sense of home. That's always something that I find that whether your little slice of home is in your bunk, where you can just close your little curtains and get into your own little world of watching Netflix or playing on video games or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that is important. And like I said, with days off, I think you want to find that sense of like comfort and perhaps the prospect of it's sometimes it's great, especially if you're in a very interesting place, it's great to be able to be like, we've got the whole day, we can go and have a look around this amazing city. I've really wanted to see this place previously, and now's my chance. But it's nice not to put the pressure on yourself to feel like that all the time. I think. Because you are doing a job, you are there for a reason. It's
weighing up the need for downtime and need for rest and recharge with trying to, experience as much as possible. It's getting that balance right between the two of them. Yeah. There's days on tours when I do just stay in the hotel all day. And then there's other days where I do force myself to get out and walk around the city or the town that I'm in. It just depends, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But personally, nowadays, I'm a boring desk jockey is, I think, what they call them. I don't know. That's probably a horrendous term. Please don't understand that. But I'm in my new home office, which is not finished.
Well, exactly.
Loads of pictures over here that are not hung up. The walls aren't painted properly, so I apologise for my background. And I have pugs over here.
That's it. Well, that's it. You've got.
I've literally got. I've just realised I've got a Super Mario blanket there, which isn't really the coolest thing, and I've got 2 pug cushions here. But it kind of they sum me up pretty well. Let's be honest. Video games and animals is basically me in a summary. So
wicked.
I'm wearing a PlayStation jumper. I've just realised.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Great.
Fanboy. So we've talked about obviously the major artists and the people that have kind of really made these momentous career changes for you.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, they're, like you've touched on, there is the DIY clients that you've worked with and the smaller bands, if you want to call them, or whatever, the kind of mid-level bands. So yeah, tell me a bit about the work with like the guys in Safety Fire, Zoaks. You've mentioned When Our Time Comes, the immensely successful When Our Time Comes.
I fucking love your band. They're a great band.
So how does working with them like compare in like let's say like a professional capacity? I know we've talked about like the connections that you make, but what about like like a day-to-day professional sort of thing in terms of scheduling and whether people are a little bit less inclined to concentrate on the job at hand?
Yeah. So it's quite tough because, so using Rise to Remain as the building block for all of this, right? Because I think that's the reason why all of these DIY things have come around.
Mm-hmm.
When I was working with Rise, who were signed to EMI and were a major label act, great, that's major label, not DIY. But when Joe and Pat, who were drummer and the bassist, left Rise to Remain, Joe went off to form Zoaks and Pat went off to joined Funeral for a Friend. So there was 2 avenues for me, but also during the Rise to Remain tour, I met a band called the Safety Fire, who you mentioned, and that opened a door for me. So I guess, so first of all, the Safety Fire, they're super important to me because I think working on their video for Huge Hammers, I was the camera operator for it, working with the director and the band. And I think they messaged me on like Saturday night and were like, are you free tomorrow to come and like shoot some stuff for us? And then it turned out to be a music video, and I was using a camera that I'd never used, and this was like 2011. So I'd been doing it for like a year, so I definitely wasn't a pro, let's put it that way. But that opened the door for me because that was quite DIY, but then I got friendly with them. And then I guess from that point onwards, the problem is a lot of these bands I've been quite friendly with to begin with. So I haven't worked with many bands who have just approached me saying, we really like your work. Can you do this for us? There's one band, and it was your band. And I knew Dom, drummer, through playing football with him and his brother, but we weren't friends. Mm-hmm. Like we were mates when we played football together, but we weren't like friends. And obviously you guys reached out to me because you knew about me from working with these bands. So I was quite lucky in that sense. So I guess you guys are the main example I could use, in that you guys came to me and said, you know, we want to make this video for, I can't remember how much money it was, but basically it was fun because I'd never really done that many music videos before.
That's right.
By myself. I don't know if I think I'd done the first Zokes one, that I directed and shot myself and edited myself.
That was all
I think maybe the first video with you guys, Home Truths, was maybe like the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like about the DIY aspect is it's all about doing it all yourself, as obvious as that sounds. Yeah. But literally, we would work really closely together to get a location, to work out what we were going to do. You guys trusted in me to create something. Obviously, that puts the pressure on me, which then actually made me work harder. And I look back on some of the videos that we made together and still look at them and enjoy them. I'm quite self-critical, so I can't look back on a lot of things that I've made and not deconstruct them and destroy them. Yeah. I can definitely still do that with some of the videos, but the video for Impending that we did, which was the black and white video, which maybe was the second video that we did.
Yeah.
I genuinely look back on that and really love it. And I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it was all because, what did we do? We had 2 hours on that one, and I was like, right, let's go here. I'll bring some lights. I will borrow this. We didn't really have any budget. I don't think we had any budget. We just paid for the studio space.
Yeah.
That was it.
We had 4 hours. I remember 4 hours being the time slot.
Yeah. 4 hours at Music Bank Studios,
That's right?
I think I literally borrowed some lights from Warner for the shoot, and maybe the camera, or maybe I was using my own camera at that point. I can't remember. And we just bashed it out and got it done. And it worked really well because it was natural, and we pressured ourselves into getting it done, and we only had a limited amount of time. So actually we ended up filming less but better stuff. And I think working with DIY bands, it's all about making the most of everything that you have. Definitely. It's not coming to someone with a budget and saying we've got £1,000, and that person going, I'm 600 quid, or I'm 300 quid to shoot it, and then I'm £300 per day. I think if you want to be involved in DIY stuff, it's all about making something that you're proud of and putting your time and effort into it. And I'm really privileged to be able to do that, because I was in a position where I had a full-time job, so I could put all of my energy and spend some of my own money and my time doing it. Obviously, it's harder for people who are starting out and don't have the money and are trying to make money and stuff. So obviously that's tough. But for us, it was a case of, I just want to make the best thing that I can by myself, and I want to put my time and effort into it. Yeah. So we didn't, I found with our budget, how could we use that in the best way? And obviously at that time, I think with the second and the third videos, we just spent the money on the location. And
that's right.
It's just key to make the most out of what you've got as a DIY band, basically. Don't let someone say that, yes, the world's best director is going to do it for you, right? But they'll take up 80% of your budget, and then you've got nothing for a cool looking location, or you're not shooting on any nice cameras, or you haven't got the playback you need, or the blah, blah, blah. There's so many different elements that go into a music video that you can't just think that getting one shit hot person is going to make you have the best music video. Right. In my opinion, for DIY, especially for bands, and I'm always talking about rock bands really and stuff like that, because that's what I grew up with and that's what I've worked with. Working with a great videographer who's going to take all of your budget, but then hasn't thought about where they're going to shoot, or what camera they're going to shoot on, or how long they're going to take to edit it, or I don't know. There's a lot of things that go into making a good DIY video, rather than just getting one person and putting all of your money in one thing. Yeah, definitely. I think some of the best DIY videos are a lot of the time where, look at, they're not really DIY, but look at While She Sleeps. Mm-hmm. They're still making their videos on quite a small budget because they do it all themselves. So the director and DOP is one of the guy's brothers, right? Tom Welsh.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
And I watched some BTS stuff from them, and they like built the set themselves in a warehouse, and like
I saw. Yeah.
they work out how they're going to do it through like. There was some transitions where they went through a window and then they reshot that bit with someone on the other side, and then they worked out how they were, it's like working out how you can make the most out of what you've got is really important, rather than just going, oh, well, if we just get this one guy, he'll just film us and that'll be that.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the video I'm thinking of exactly is the one with Ollie Sykes. It's called Silence Speaks. And if you watch the BTS of that, and you see what they put into making their videos, they're a really good example of a band that are huge, like Sleeps are huge in the rock and metal world now.
Well, Paul, yeah.
And they're still chipping away and DIYing it, and it's amazing to see.
Yeah.
And what they output is of such a high level. Obviously, there's no taking away from the fact that the director is super talented. I love everything that he creates, but also he's hardworking at the same time.
Absolutely.
So I think, being a DIY band, it's all about just getting the right combination of things rather than putting all of your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. Perfectly answered, I think.
I think so anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends. Sometimes you can put all your eggs in one basket and you'll get, like, if you're making an animated video and you pay this shit hot animator and that's that, then brilliant. But it's a risk, you're risking a lot there by doing that. And also you've got to remember sometimes that you might not have that much money to play with.
Which leads me on to the next one, actually. So, and it's because you mentioned that specific amount of money. Imagine a band comes to you with a modest budget of £1,000.
Right.
As I think that's probably a reasonable figure to assume that a starting back in certain, in the UK or the States, not everywhere in the world, but let's be specific to the UK. £1,000 is probably your average kind of beginner realistic budget. Obviously, people are going to try and get away with less than that.
Yeah.
Or they might be fortunate to have a little bit more. But let's say they have £1,000. What would you say is the single most important thing they should aim for to kind of get the most out of their money, or the most important thing that you would aim for with that money? God,
it's really tough because I'm quite a different person to what some other people would say. Because what I'm about to say might be really sacrilegious to some people. Personally, I would say that what you want to create is something that is good. And that sounds really obvious, but a lot of people go for crazy creative and they are aiming really high. And if you don't hit what you're trying to hit, you can't put a video out, right? So it's all or nothing. And I know loads of video directors are all or nothing people because they come up with crazy concepts and try to do them. And if it doesn't work, then that's that. Personally, that's not me and never has been me. I've always wanted to make sure that what I'm making is of a level. So I always try and fit into a bracket, a high level bracket. I'm not a crazy artistic person. I'm never going to be creating these videos that are like MTV music nominated, and that's a really bad example because MTV music is like only pop music stuff. Like music video award winning stuff for pop videos and crazy shit. I don't do that. That's not me. I would say that if you're a band who've only got a limited amount of money, you want to make sure that what you're creating is of a good quality and is outputable always. Because when you work with some creatives, you run the risk of you're putting your trust in them, right? You're putting all of your money in their hands and hoping that what they create is good enough. Because if it's not, when it comes to videoing stuff, obviously it's all based on the footage that you've shot usually. Right. It's not usually based on the fact that it's not a good edit. I mean, it can be, obviously, but obviously you can re-edit, but you can't reshoot. And most of it comes down to the shooting aspect. I would just say, always try and get someone who you know is a trustworthy person who is going to deliver. That's really difficult when it comes to the budget that you mentioned, which obviously I said as well. But what I will say about that figure, and I guess it's a thing that people outside of the industry don't understand. £1,000 to make a video sounds a lot and always has done. And when you hear of the numbers that some bigger artists spend on their music videos, to the everyday person, it sounds insane. But when you break that £1,000 down into the rates that you're paying for certain people to do stuff, if you're paying just let's say it was me, because I have my own camera kit in here and I also edit. So say you're paying someone like me to do stuff. If you're paying them to shoot for the whole day, for one day, and then to edit a music video, which if you've got the experience that I've have, you can cut days off the amount of time that it's going to take. But if you're starting out, it's going to take, let's say, 4 or 5 days for you to edit a music video, maybe longer, maybe less. Let's use that as the example. Mm-hmm. Well, even if you're only charging £100 a day, which you shouldn't be, because you don't want to lowball yourself and create bad starting points for where everyone thinks they can make the most out of you. But let's say you were doing that. I mean, you're still nearly hitting that £1,000 figure just from those silly low numbers that I've just thrown out there.
Yeah.
So people who don't quite understand the numbers that come with budgets of music videos, they don't quite see why that costs so much.
Yeah.
But nowadays, in obviously in the modern world, and I say that sounding like a super old person, but obviously with it all being based around YouTube now, and when I started out in the industry, YouTube was a thing, but it wasn't the beast that it is today. And the amount of money that you can make off views, and the fact that YouTube views now equate to chart position sales.
Yeah.
So if you think all of that side of things, and then you think about how much people pay to record the music, like actually record the music, like you'll know from being even a small band, working with a good producer, and going to these studios and doing it like that, it's expensive. But no one bats an eyelid when you spend the money on creating the music. But people seem to have a problem when it comes to spending the money on the video. And now when you realize the monetary gain you can get from huge amount of views and the exposure to the world that a platform like YouTube is giving you, I think people need to be a bit more realistic in how much money they are putting into videos where they can. I'm not saying people need to start taking out loans to do music videos.
Of course.
I'm just saying that if you're a band and you think, yeah, we'll spend £5,000 on making an album, but then we'll ask someone to do a video for £500 for one of the tracks, which is the lead single off our album or the biggest song that we've written, and we want to share this video worldwide, I think you need to re-weigh up your balance in figures there a little bit.
Definitely.
Personally. And obviously that's from a video perspective person, but I'm a musician as well. Like I've got my electric drum kit behind me and I play guitar, and I wanted to be in bands, so I understand the musicianship and I understand that side of things. Sure. So I do think people need to think a bit more about balking at high figures for content creation, because it's a huge part of the digital age that we're in now. And
so important. Yeah.
I mean, it's massive. I mean, if someone hears about a band nowadays, the first thing they'll do is YouTube them.
Yeah, agreed.
If you've got a good, and I'm not saying you need a sick video, I'm on about a video that's watchable, that connects to your song well, and people enjoy or can watch and not go, oh, what the fuck is this? And they just sort of zone out from it and enjoy it and listen to the track.
Yeah.
Super important, like super important.
I even find myself, if I'm on the go, then Spotify is obviously easier. But if I'm at home, if I'm sat behind my computer or, on my phone or whatever at home, and someone sends me a link to which, or just tells me to check out an artist, so they've just told me to check out an artist. Yeah, exactly. I will go to YouTube before I go to Spotify.
Yeah.
Purely because, I mean, like, for the obvious reasons you've mentioned, but then, I'm quite a visual person. I'm interested in visuals. And so all of a sudden you're like, well, maybe just putting the track out isn't enough. And maybe I should dedicate more money to it. And I think like there's a scale now that's kind of tipping a little bit in the direction of actually spending more on music videos, because, more and more people, the lockdown has been a great incentive for people, but more and more people are recording from home. Yeah. That's not to say that that working with producers is not happening anymore. Like I think that is still a crucial thing to do with talented producers. But
I mean, it's the same with everything, right? There's a pro and there's a con to everything.
Absolutely.
working with the world's biggest director has a pro and con, and working with a huge producer, or even a producer you're paying money for rather than doing stuff at home, has a pro and a con to it. There's no removal of these roles. There's just the ability to do it yourself. That's the difference.
Exactly. Whereas, the person that might have a little Focusrite interface, who can bash something out at home, he might not necessarily have the skills, equipment, know-how, whatever, to film a music video for themselves. So, they're gonna need to have that avenue to spend their
and if you think you're spending less money on not going to studios and recording stuff, then maybe think about, okay, well, I could take even half of that money I was going to spend, and I could put it into creating content, whether you want to do a music video for yourself or not, or whether it's even just upgrading your social content and stuff. Like, visuals are a key point to music now. They are hand in hand, basically. You will go on people's Instagrams and see their stuff on there, Facebook's, Twitter's, YouTube. In every place there is a visual match to the audio, unless you're on Spotify. Even Spotify have got canvases that are visual that play within Spotify now, which labels are spending money on creating content for visuals within Spotify. So I think people definitely need to rethink the audio first, video second thing. Obviously there is no video without the music. There's no getting away from that. The music is the most important, but if you chuck a piece of shit video to an amazing track, you will ruin that song 100%. Do you know what I just thought, actually, a prime example of this, the other way round, is Aha's Take On Me video, because I worked on a documentary for this, which is super cool and really eye-opening. And I think the song got released like 3 times before that they made that music video, or twice or 3 times. Then they made that music video.
Didn't know that.
Then it went on MTV, and then it became a worldwide hit, because the music video grabbed people for long enough for them to engage with a song that wasn't necessarily an A-B style song. It wasn't an originally radio-friendly track. Take On Me is quite a weird arrangement for is such a huge song. And that was in 80 whatever, so there's no getting away from the fact that if you couple your great tunes with a great video, then you've got longevity there, and people will want to listen and watch. Crucial balance. But it's different. All of this is coming from a point where I've been really lucky to have had a lot of the time budget to spend. I know how to do it without the money, but recently I've had the luxury of having more budget to spend. So I'm not saying that all of these people should be going out there, if you're a tiny band, and spending loads of money that's way outside of your means. I think the point goes back to, whatever you're creating, you should try and make it of a good quality, and try and look into every avenue of what you're creating. You find yourself a quirky location, you do it well, you try and spend some time editing it well. It's just about putting a bit of effort into it with no money. You can make stuff with no money.
Absolutely.
There's great stuff that I'm seeing on iPhone and things like that,
Right.
And this lockdown has obviously meant a massive surge in content creation using iMacs and phones, and there's music videos coming out from huge artists that have just been shot at home by themselves, and they're really engaging. And so it's not all about the kit that you've got a lot of the time, but it helps sometimes. Couldn't agree more. So here's an interesting one. A couple of quick questions about and go into as much detail as you want, or keep it as light as you want, about peeves. So when you're working, and no need to mention any names or anything, but obviously it's part of any job. There are peeves. So what's one thing that your clients do, or clients in the past have done, that would add an unnecessary complication to your job in a day, say? Obviously, I worked in a major label for 8 years, and then I've been nearly 2 years self-employed. So there's different answer to both scenarios. I think when I was at a major label, there's a lot of people involved in what happens, which can dilute a lot of what's being created. Basically, if you work in-house at a major label, as a creative, you kind of need to learn to create something and be happy with your first edit. And then when you send it to the wider team, just be ready to accept what comes back at you.
Yeah.
Which can be good for the final outcome, but can also not be, because some of the people who are on the email chain aren't necessarily creative, or necessarily don't share the same vision that the rest of the team do, or, you know, similar things like that. So I think a peeve from when I worked there was obviously too many people involved in the overall outcome of what you were creating. But I think since being self-employed, that's obviously changed, because I usually just work with a couple of members of a team, and I'm not as involved in the politics of the world anymore, of the music world anymore. I think it still comes down to meetings. There's a lot. Sometimes there's too much chat and there's too much overcomplication is sometimes the thing that I think, and that can be quite. I think that's quite an up yourself thing to say. I don't mean it like that. What I mean is that sometimes when you're creating a project, things are a lot simpler than people try to make them out to be.
Sure.
And some people feel they need to overcomplicate things to justify something.
Right.
For instance, if you were doing a session with an artist and you knew that you had X amount of cameras and you knew you were going to this location, and there's a level of complication it doesn't need to go above, but sometimes certain people try and, oh, but have you seen this reference? And do you know this film director from 1963? And I really like what he was trying to do. And there's an overcomplication of things to try and include yourself in the conversation sometimes from certain people.
Mm-hmm.
And then as for like the creation process, you know, I'm quite an easygoing person. I'm not like a director. He's quite difficult. So I accept a lot of people's feedback, because often it can make for a better video. Collaboration's a great thing.
Yeah.
So I don't really have any massive peeves on what people should do. The only thing I do think is pay your freelancers.
Yes.
I don't suffer from it a lot, because I work with the same people a lot of the time, so I have a really good relationship with that. But I know there's a lot of people who don't understand that, you know, the people creating the content, they are creating it to feed themselves as well. So pay your freelancers quickly, please, would be a little peeve, not necessarily from me, but from the wider community. A
little tie onto that, I guess, would be, is there one thing that you wish kind of people would come in prepared with, whether physical or, you know, or just written on as a plan or something?
I don't think there's anything in terms of the beginning of the process.
Yeah.
I think what helps a lot of the time is do you know, a big problem is people who don't really know what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you should know what you want to create before you engage with a creative. And that sounds super obvious, but obviously creative people can be given an open-ended brief and just make something. You know, you can just be sent off to make this. And then it's kind of like, oh, well, actually, I'm not really sure this is whatever, and da-da-da. Because the people who are asking you to do it haven't necessarily thought through what they even want. I find there's a lot of edit feedback that's maybe like, you know, this isn't really what we were thinking of, or da-da-da. I think a lot of the time, it's difficult because I've worked in the full-time profession where obviously you've got a million emails, you're in so many meetings, there's not time to focus specifically on projects really, unless you're wanting to work for like 18 hours a day or something ridiculous. You just don't have the time to focus on stuff, so it is hard to come up with really dedicated ideas of what you want, or to allow, you either need to allow a creative to just make something, or you need to know what you want. You don't get someone to just make something whilst almost sort of knowing what you want, but haven't really articulated what you want. Some of the best people that I work with now will come back on an email to my edits that I've sent over and go, 13 seconds, remove this. I want a different font. This isn't working. 24 seconds. I don't like this shot. It's really good to be specific in that sense, because it makes the back and forth a lot easier. Obviously, I have an idea of what I'm creating, but the person who wants it created as an idea of what they want. And it's always hard for people to articulate what they want. Even when I'm like writing a video treatment, it's hard for me to get out of here onto paper what I want to create. And actually, I really hate treatments for videos.
Right.
That's a massive peeve for me, but that's something completely different. But yeah, I guess just knowing, not necessarily knowing exactly what you want, but having an idea of what you want created and your deadlines and all this little specific stuff there that makes your creative job a little bit more, not easy is not the term, but just gives them more of a direction, and knowing exactly where to put their efforts into basically is that's a real problem I have with some projects that I've worked on, where you spend a long bloody time creating something that never gets used. And another peeve is when people don't respond to you and then it doesn't get used. That's a real problem for me, because I don't care if my work isn't getting used, but I'd love to know that it's not getting used.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, now I'm self-employed, you get paid to create, right? So I'm still getting paid. So if your only worry is the money side of things, then fine. But as a creative, sometimes you want the feedback and be like, okay, look, we're not going with it because we didn't really like it, or we're not going with it because that project isn't actually working and it's nothing to do with what you have done. Mm-hmm. I think just some honest feedback a lot of the time is welcomed. From me personally, I'm not sure if everyone's the same, but I want to better myself all the time, because I'm getting to an age now where, I'm 31 and it's not old, but in terms of content creation, it's coming a long way now with kids are just like smashing stuff out of the park at such a young age, because you can get really great quality cameras, and kids are really creative now, and it's brilliant. Like, there's so much more avenue for being creative nowadays. I feel like I need to keep upping myself to make sure that I'm relevant. Well, not even relevant, I'm just creating good enough stuff anymore. Basically, you don't want to get left behind.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very welcome little spark up your ass.
Basically, yeah, because I have a mortgage to pay and I have a child to feed, but at the same time, this is my job, and it's like, I don't want to be forced to retire from this job because no one uses me anymore. Like, I do this because I love it. It's a job, but I love doing it. So I want to make sure that I'm staying relevant to the point where people keep coming back and wanting stuff created. So, but yeah, for the peeve, it's definitely a lack of direction for me. Even as a director, being brought onto projects where people don't quite know what it is that they're creating is very frustrating.
Right. So, somewhat on the opposite side of that, what would be what's a rewarding job for you? What would you say is like a very typically rewarding job?
I just like making stuff, right? And my favorite thing is when someone comes back and says, this is great. Because ultimately I love making stuff because I like making it, but I also love making stuff because I like making things for people and getting something back. As self-indulgent as that sounds, creatives want to make stuff because they think it's sick and they want other people to think it's sick. Yeah. Basically. So yeah, the thing that I get out of it most is, even when it comes to making like a 15-second teaser for a video that already exists that I didn't do, and I do a little something and it's slick and someone comes back and goes, this is perfect, and I'm like, smashed it, done. That's why I always want to get back. So I guess that's, for me, that's the best bit about all of this for me, is people, whether it's fans or the people who I'm creating the stuff for, enjoying what I create. Right. And the good thing is I have the world's harshest critic in my wife. She just doesn't really, because she doesn't really get a lot of the things that I do. She is just like, yeah. And if I get if she goes, oh, this is really cool, I'm like, okay, I think I'm on something here. Whereas she goes, yeah, it's all right, I mean, I didn't really, and then I'm like, fuck.
The perfect person to have around you. You know, that grounded mind and that grounded. It's not
horrible. I will just say that. Not horrible. But she comes from a completely different world in that she did. She was a dancer, and then when she was a primary school teacher, two completely different things. But she's never been involved in the music side of things or the video side of things. So it's great to have. That's another thing I think is really important. It's great to have other people's opinions who are from outside of your circle.
Definitely.
Especially if you want to keep learning and you want to keep making yourself better, I think having open and honest feedback from people who aren't just going to say, yeah, man, you're great, like all the time, like your mum and dad telling you that it's brilliant all the time. You need to have a bit of honest feedback from people. And I've been really lucky in that a lot of my friends are very honest with me, especially the guys who are in the safety fire, who I'm friends with, Des in particular. He will be like, I didn't really like it. I don't think it's the best thing that you've done. And I didn't like this and that about it, and being like constructive with it. And we both are to each other. And that's been more helpful than anything, because then you sort of realize, oh, okay, maybe I've rested on my laurels a bit on this one, and I need to really push a bit harder and stuff. I think open and honest feedback is really important.
100%. Nice. So we're almost coming to the end. I hope
I'm sorry for talking so long.
No, this is it's all super valuable stuff. I've got a few quick fire questions for you.
I don't know if I'm able to do quick fire by the sounds of it.
You'll be able to. First of all, what's your dream client? Not necessarily who, but what is your dream client?
I can tell you my dream client is Metallica. So if Metallica want to reach out to me and want me to do a music, do you know what? I'll make anything for them. Metallica, hit me up. Hit me up, Metallica.
Yes.
Do you know what? Just from a purely, because I've changed my outlook a little bit recently, and I'm just really enjoying like life rather than work life at the moment. So I think for me at the moment, my dream client is someone who comes to me and says, here is what we've got, or here is what we want you to do. Here is exactly what you're creating, and please send it back to us. And there we go. My dream client is a great collaborator with a clear vision, basically, because I don't want to be doing projects that bang on for months and months. I just want to be creating stuff. I'm also very impatient, so if I make something, I want it to be out as soon as I finish doing it. Yep. So my dream client is someone who says, we want you to film this thing. Can you turn it around in a few days? It will be going live next Monday.
Yeah.
Prime example was when I shot Ed at Wembley. We filmed it on the Thursday, and I think it was out the next Thursday. Something like that. Or it was a week and a half. And I love that, because I'm like an instant creator. I can't sit on projects for a long time. So I guess that's what my dream client is.
Perfect. Next up, how was it being nominated at the UK MVAs?
So weird.
Because that's pretty cool.
So weird. No, it's so weird. So weird. When I look back on what we made with Gabrielle Aplin, it was super cool. Because we kind of used mixed formats. We didn't have loads of budget for that one. That was another one that wasn't DIY, because she's signed to a major label and we had budget. Yeah. But when it comes to filming a multicam, I was kind of like, okay, we'll put some GoPros here because we have the ability to have some, and we will put cameras here. Then we'll use the better cameras for these specific shots. So like my specific shots was like, I wanted to see the venue. I wanted to get a close up on Gabrielle because she is the artist. Yeah. I wanted to have like the sort of medium shot and the close-up shot, and I wanted to have a gimbal that was moving around the stage. Everything else was about getting as many angles as possible from a sort of fan interaction point of view. It's kind of what I always do when it comes to multicams. Like even when we shot Ed Sheeran, I tried to put a camera in the crowd at Wembley Stadium, because when people are watching it, I feel like, yeah, they want the polished edge, but they also want to kind of feel like they were there too. So I kind of try and mix my cameras with like clean shots of what we're getting, and then the sort of fan through shoulders shots, and maybe different angles that show the enormousness of a venue that you're in, or things like that. So for the UK MVAs to get nominated for something like that, where we didn't really spend that much money and we sort of just made it work in the right way, well, that was super weird. And then when they read out like who I was up against, it was absolutely insane.
Who was it? Who was in the category?
So one of my idols, I was up against, I guess idols, or a guy I really look up to, Paul Dugdale. He's an incredible multicam director who's worked with Coldplay, worked with the Rolling Stones. Basically, Paul Dugdale has worked with anyone and everyone. He is insanely good at what he does. And I was up against him, and he had like 2 things in that category. Right. And then another guy called Dick Carruthers, who was like a slightly more old school but still amazing multicam live director. And do you know what? And it was like the artists who had created the content, like who were in the content. I was up against Jay-Z and Beyonce, Lenny Kravitz. I think it was like the Rolling Stones, AC/DC, Wolf Alice, and then it was this Gabrielle Aplin thing that I'd done, and kind of felt like I'd done it myself with a good team, and it was weird, but it was super cool. I found a video the other day of like when they read out the names beforehand, and it's like Gabrielle Aplin, directed by Jamie Carter, and like all of my tables like, way. And it was super cool to go to an event like that and be at a table and be nominated. Like, cool. And I'd love for it to happen again. Whether that's from a directing point of view or an editing point of view, I still hold hopes for creating something that does get recognition. I'd like to have something that I create that gets recognition.
Sure, of course.
In an award. I guess more for a selfish point of view, I guess. Because I think I've made quite a lot of projects that hopefully fans have engaged with, but I'd like to make one project that my industry peers engage with in a way where I get that recognition. I don't feel like it's a necessity, but it would definitely be nice.
100%. Yeah, peer recognition is crucial.
I think so. Like, I know that the people who I've worked with have always rated me and put me forward for stuff, but I would just like that one moment. I sort of had it when we worked on an app for Tiny Temper, which was like a rap demonstration app, it was called. And basically I filmed Tiny's mouth rapping these tracks and sort of centered his mouth up, and then we shot it as if it was like this. So then when people held the iPhone over their mouth, it was Tiny's face, and then they could make content of themselves rapping the songs and stuff. And it was quite cool. And we got I've got it up next to me actually. It's the Digital Music Award, and it was the Innovation in Digital Marketing Award. Right. I've got one here. I don't know why I managed to get my hands on one, but it was cool that my content was in an award-winning thing. But I would like my, something I literally created that would be cool.
Really.
But if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then fine.
Sure. And what advice would you give your 20-year-old self? So sticking with that 10-year, decade bracket, what advice would you give yourself at 20 when you were starting out in the music industry? One piece of advice.
You're not that good yet.
Uh-huh.
And not because I was really sure of myself. But I think I was creating stuff that I thought was probably above what it was. And I think at some points I needed to maybe work a bit harder. And I still think that's true for me now. Like, I feel like in 10 years, I'll say the same to myself then. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the problem comes from the fact that, like I said, I'm a hypercritical person. And if you speak to anyone that I've worked with, they know, like, I will rip a project to pieces the second it goes out. Which isn't great, because I don't think you're ever truly really happy with anything that you make. But I'd probably tell my young self, like, calm down a bit, lad. You've got a while in this yet. I think you should probably take some time to learn some more things. Although, do you know what? It's difficult, because if I told my young self anything, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. I think you need to go through everything that you've gone through. I don't regret anything. Career-wise, I don't regret anything in life, but career-wise, I definitely don't regret anything. I guess I think don't take it so personally. I think that is, do you know what? Actually, that's a really key thing. I think a lot of people take creative stuff really personally. And when I was starting out in EMI, obviously you kind of create something and you feel like it's yours, right? So then if someone whose opinion you don't hold as high as your own in terms of creative aspect of things comes in and is like, you should change this and change that, and this needs to get changed, don't get too eaten up about it. I'd say that to myself, not just at 20 but throughout the years. I've had many projects where I've butted heads with people because maybe I thought I was right and I wasn't so willing to listen to their feedback. That would probably be my main thing, is like, definitely don't take it so personally. The problem with that on the other side is, if you don't hold any part of it to yourself, I don't think that you really end up ever being happy with what you create. So it's finding the ground in the middle, as is everything in life, right? But definitely that.
Have you got anything coming up that you can disclose? Anything that you're looking forward to working on? Or
I mean, right now I haven't got loads of stuff. But I will say I've been quite fortunate during this in that I had good contacts, obviously in the majors, who they need to keep outputting content, right? So obviously a lot of artists have been filming themselves during lockdown, doing quarantine live sessions and things. And I've been quite lucky in that I've been repurposing a lot of that stuff for multiple platforms. And I guess it's part of me being very open to kind of doing a lot of things, whereas you know, some people would probably say I'm not doing this and that and da, da, da. I've just been like adding titling and re-exporting and reframing and all these sort of like very simple things, but it's a job that needs doing. And so I found myself quite busy actually for a good portion of it. I have weeks where I don't do too much, but I've had times when I've been busy. I'm not working on a massive amount at the moment. I've got a project with a big brand which is ongoing, which we're in talks about what we're going to do in terms of sessions, because a lot of people now are getting a little bored of the quarantine home sessions, and with the restrictions lifting, we're trying to work out a safe way to meet in the middle from what we maybe would have done in the past to what's been done in the last few months. And it's kind of like, you know, shot at home sessions maybe feel a little bit start of COVID.
Sure.
But that's the thing, the industry is changing, and people were more than happy to watch IG live stuff at the start, but I think they oversaturated the market, and now we need to do something a bit different. So I'm working on that until, I think we're working with like 5 different artists until the middle of next year. So that is going to change throughout. Every artist is probably going to have a different level of restriction or what we can do. And other than that, I've just been doing like asset creation, content creation, like adverts for YouTube channels and things. You know, I really enjoy editing, and I'm more than happy to edit anything. So I quite like just getting stuck into different things.
Wicked.
But actually, I've had quite a nice week of doing nothing this week. So
what have you been doing?
I can't complain. I've been doing nothing apart from dadding, and that's it. It's quite full on with a 7-month-old child, with no, like, obviously not being able to have your family around at the moment. And my family are 3 hours west in Gloucestershire, and Hannah's family are 2 and a bit hours east in Suffolk. So we're quite like alone and dealing with everything. So we've done bits around the house and bits and bobs, but most of the time it's really nice because like I've been at home. I've been spending loads of time with my daughter through like the times when she's probably going to grow the most during these first few months and years. So it's been really nice. But it would be good to do a few things. I've got some sessions that I'm hopefully shooting in a controlled environment with like PPE and temperature checks and everything like that going on, and distancing and stuff. But those are going to be in the next couple of weeks, a few of those, which is really cool. But I've been quite all right with being at home and chilling out.
Deserved.
I think it's changed. It's definitely changed my balance. Because I've always worked, like, I think I've worked a little too hard a lot of the time of like going. I used to be, when I was at Warner, I used to be there from 9. I'd leave the house at like 8 a.m. and I'd get home between 8 and 10 p.m. when I wasn't shooting. This is only when I was in the office editing. So I had a lot of years where I was traveling, not being at home very much. And I think that balance now is being readdressed with being at home way more. And hopefully if I can do more edit side of things whilst picking and choosing the right live, like directing projects and stuff that work with me, then that's brilliant. I just did a really cool session with working with Universal and Google for the Nest sessions that they did, which was essentially home shot content by artists, which I helped to be on Zoom calls with and, you know, help set up the shot and talk the artist through what was going on and be a reassurance without being too involved, and edit them. And it was really refreshing because I didn't have to go away for days on end to shoot, and I could still do my job whilst being at home. And that's the luxury of and the privilege that I've got right now. So it's good in that way.
Yeah, wicked. And you mentioned that you've been thinking about teaching potentially.
Yeah, I know. I quite enjoy it. I've always quite enjoyed it in a way. I don't know where it sort of came from. My friend works at a college nearby, and he asked me to come in and do a sort of guest lecture on myself and the music industry, similar to what we'd like talked about today. But because I think of myself as an all right editor. Like, I think I can do a job, you know. I've done some cool things, and I would love to be able to lead like an edit course and talk people through like maybe why certain things are done and why I've edited something like this, and to help explain the flow and why I felt like certain things worked and so I just would really like to do that. And I don't think that this career has a infinite lifespan, because you will always get older and start to fall into a niche no matter how hard you try. I think anyway, some people are probably very lucky to have not done that, but you will always fall into, this is what you do, and there's not much outside of that you will get, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. You just become really good at a certain part of it after experiencing all of it. But you know, if it starts to dwindle down a bit, I'd love to help pass on some knowledge and sort of explain to kids, not necessarily kids, but like people. I really want to work with people that want to do this, not just go into schools and talk about, oh, this is the music industry, to kids who don't really want to listen. I'd love to talk to myself at uni when I started out and be like, look, this is what you can do, and this is what I did, and these were the things I failed at, because I basically failed uni. Like I don't have an honours degree. I have a normal degree because I failed my dissertation because I didn't put myself in the zone. Like I wasn't bothering, and I'd love to explain to people that you can still do stuff even if things don't necessarily pan out for you. Here's the mistakes that I've made. You can either not try and not make them, or listen to how I managed to turn them into more of a positive sort of thing. And like I say, explaining to a lot of young people that it's not all about just getting in and knowing someone at a company. Like literally the key thing I say to every person who I talk to is, you can literally get the most amount of luck in the world and get an opportunity. And if you just go in there and an idiot and don't make a bad impression, or on the flip side, you're super quiet and you don't make an impression at all and people don't remember you, then what's the point? Like you need to have that level of, yes, you need the luck, but also you need to be working hard to keep that luck, or alternatively work really hard. And if that bit of luck comes, then you're way more likely to have this longevity than someone who just gets it out of nowhere. And I always try and tell like younger people that, do you know what, actually I try and explain that to a lot of the people who don't necessarily know the industry. Some of my friends don't get it and sort of take the piss out of me for, oh, you're so hard and it's so difficult for you, isn't it? But you know, yes, it's a super privileged role and it's amazing, but I've sacrificed a lot of time and dedication to what I do. So I think it's just important to make the younger people realize that you can do it. Like you can do this. It's way easier now to create content and get in with artists than it ever has been. But this is the way that you should think about doing it, rather than thinking you're just there instantly, basically. So yeah, I'd love to move into that at one point, and me and my wife are talking about maybe moving a little further away from London at some point. So, you know, maybe I do more of that if I ended up near a university or something like that. But yeah, I just think it's really important for people who are starting out to talk to people who've had a similar or an honest way in. Do you know what I mean? Like I when I was working at Warner, the HR department there always got me to do a workshop to the interns, like the work experience, not the intern, the work experience kids that would come in, and they're between like, I think they were between like 15, 16, 17. Warner have got a really good work experience placement system actually, and they would ask me to talk to them, and rather than be super boring and just show stuff, I'd like to be honest and like to show people the reality of what it is, because it can actually make it lots more open to people, and people realize that it's not this like crazy mad world. You can do it as well. I say that, am I even doing it? Who knows? I still don't feel like I'm really even doing most of this stuff. It feels like a pretty mad existence.
Well, from my perspective, you're absolutely smashing it, mate.
Thanks, mate.
That puts it colloquially, but you know, that's the reality of it, I think.
Well, we'll see if it continues. If it doesn't, it's been very cool.
Yes.
Very cool. And it's something that hopefully one day my little daughter can go, Daddy did something pretty cool. And that's kind of where a lot of it comes from for me now, is just kind of trying to do things that, I don't know, make me a bit more interesting a dad.
That's right, man. It's all about her now.
Unfortunately, according to my bank balance, it is.
Well, dude, yeah, perfectly summarized. Mate, that's the chat.
Well, thanks very much for listening to me ramble.
No,
whilst I've sort of been playing with things in my hands like a sort of school kid that doesn't really know where to look. But I appreciate it. I always want to like share a bit of insight, a bit into like a world that sometimes is a bit guarded and other times is a bit weird.
Yeah.
I want to hopefully give a bit of a normal person view on this weird music industry that we're in.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I you know, I've obviously followed what you've done ever since we've known each other, but it's great to hear it in detail. You know, it's great to hear the small kind of details of how things come about and how you know, like the how you really feel about certain things and certain aspects.
Loads of people just wash over a lot of stuff, because obviously people sometimes are very guarded and don't want to open up about stuff, and I'm a little bit more honest about certain parts of it, and also being honest with myself. Like when I went self-employed, I had these dreams of being a really big director, and I started working with an agency who rep directors, and I did a video for them, and you know, I was really happy with the video that I did for them and everything like that, and they're all really nice people. But I think it comes to realizing sometimes you're what you want and where I want it to be, and I'm very honest with myself in realizing now that you're probably not a big director of like crazy music videos. I know what I do now, and I think I know I create cool, natural, live stuff. It's like that's my thing, and I edit quite well too. And I think being honest with myself and honest with other people in that you don't need to be a master at everything, but it probably takes you experiencing a lot of things to work out what you want to do.
Definitely.
That's why I've tried to always open myself up to every role, I guess, in the industry,
sure,
whilst having no illusions that I am not a director of photography and I am not you know, an audio engineer and stuff, but at least having basic knowledge of other things has led me into the right, or at least what I feel like is the right path for me now. So yeah,
fantastic.
It's been fun chatting through.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, as a close friend, super proud. Keep doing it, mate.
I won't give up yet, Joe. I realise I'm not funny when I'm talking about work stuff. Like I'm usually like making like jokes and stuff, and then I start talking about this and I'm super serious. There was like no fart jokes in there or anything. Come on. Never too old to be an idiot.
Yeah, everybody go and check out all of Jamie's stuff, jamiecarterfilms.com, for deeper insight into this crazy mind.
Or don't.
Or don't. No, do it.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you could find some value in the conversation. If you're a musical artist looking for some experienced guidance on how to further your career and would like to know what Point Break Entertainment could do to help, follow the links in the description below and feel free to reach out to us at any time.